Welcome back to It's All Her, the podcast. I'm your host, Geordie Lucas. I'm the founder and editor of It's All Her. I was an actress in a previous life and I'm a mum to a toddler. I've got a lot going on and I have a passion for helping women live simpler, better lives. For the latest in lifestyle and entertainment, head to itsallher.com. Welcome to our second last episode before we take a break for Christmas. How are you? How is the year wrapping up for you? Eventful few weeks for me. I have been diagnosed with ADHD, which comes as no surprise to myself. I spoke about it on my Instagram and so many of you were really supportive and very interested in the process, either for yourself or maybe for someone that you know and love. It's not an easy process, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to do a whole Q&A on the process of getting diagnosed and why I decided to go for it. Because I have lived most of my life with these symptoms, I guess, and some people say, well, why does a diagnosis matter? And I will tell you all about that on Instagram when I get my act together. It's very ADHD of me to say that I'm going to do something and not do it for 3 or 4 weeks, so bear with me. We're also flying to the UK this Friday to see my husband's family, who we haven't seen in just under 3 years. So that is really exciting. Not so much looking forward to the 20-hour flight with my 3-year-old, but very much looking forward to seeing them. That's all the life updates from me. I want to get straight into this week's interview with Lucy Durack. She is one of Australia's leading ladies, both on stage and on screen. I have been such a fan of her for a long time, and I love seeing her every year at the carols. I can confirm she is just as delightful as you would expect her to be, and so generous with not only her time, but in mentioning other performers and their successes. The entertainment industry is rife with egos and a lot of people who are only interested in talking about themselves and their own achievements. So this was just a nice reminder for me that there's room for everyone, and shining the light on someone else's success never dims your light. So that was my takeaway from the chat, and I think it's a good time of the year to be reminded to just be generous with your time, with other people, and with yourself. We're all crawling towards the finish line, so just be kind. So here's my chat with Lucy Durack, where I started by asking her all about her childhood and early aspirations.
I was quite shy. I still am kind of weirdly underneath quite shy, even though I love performing. I was quite, I felt very nervous getting up in front of my school friends and that sort of thing to sing, but I had this burning desire to sing and to act as a child. But
yes,
I lived a very sort of I grew up in suburban Perth, so I lived a very non-performing arts childhood. I lived next door to a park, and I remember I grew up at a time where just before Johnny Young Talent Time was kind of ending. So when Courtney, who was on Johnny Young Talent Time in the very last talent team, and she was you were 2 older than me at the time, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I just idolized her, and I idolized Danny Minogue, and and I used to sing like outside on my own because it wasn't in front of people, but out into the park thinking, what if maybe Johnny Young is just walking around in the park and he'll just hear me and he'll ask me to join the talent team.
Bless, that is the sweetest thing.
And every time anyone, because my mum has, she's one of 5 kids, and my aunties and my grandma would call a lot. And any time the phone would ring and I could hear mum's voice that it wasn't one of my aunties or my grandma, I'd think, oh, it's Johnny Young.
So sweet.
That was very
so you obviously got into WAPA, which is a performing arts school in Perth. When did you sort of realise that maybe you are good enough to make a career out of this?
My high school drama teacher, George Sakasiris, who's still the drama teacher at the school I went to in Perth, John 23rd College, he was the most wonderful. He and Tony Strong, she was the head of music at the time, and they had a called Juliet on, who used to come in and do the dance, and she was brilliant too. And the three of them did a school musical once a year, and I auditioned in year 8 and didn't get in, auditioned in year 9, didn't get in, auditioned in year 10 and finally got in, and I was in the chorus. I had 11 lines. I was first young woman, but I think it actually was first young man, but there's always like the boys that want to do the school musical, and I was so excited. And then the following year I auditioned, and they said, they did this big talk, and they said, look, just because you're in the school musical last year doesn't mean that you'll be in next, this year. And I was like, oh God, that's going to be me. I just know it. I've already not gotten in more than I've gotten in. And we were doing Funny Girl that year, and I looked from the bottom of the cast list, and I was like, oh no, that's not my name. Wait, my name is at the top. What? And I got the role of Fanny Bryce, and I
oh wow,
like a year 11 student, and that was probably the first taste of like going, well, somebody thinks I'm good enough to do that. And and I had a really supportive family. In fact, my grandma, who is no longer with us, she famously came to the opening night of Funny Girl and clapped so hard she broke one of her rings. But so it was, I mean, my family always were like, yeah, follow your heart, but like, nobody did anything like this for a living. But it wasn't until my high school drama teacher said to me, there's a place called Whopper, and I actually didn't know. This was when I was in year 12. You could go and you could audition. He pulled me and another girl aside. He said, I really think that you've got a chance. Why don't you go? And my mum and I were like, what? We didn't even know it was 20 minutes from where I grew up from. And I went to this open day at Whopper, and I was just like, oh my God, like this is the greatest place. It was like, there were people doing poetry, and there was people dancing, and there were people rehearsing an Australian musical. In fact, Nat O'Donnell and Simon Gleeson, who've become close friends of mine, but who were big musical theatre performers, in the likes of Les Mis. Simon was Valjean in the most recent production of Les Mis, and Nat is currently in Come From Away. Anyway, they were in third year, and so I watched them rehearsing this amazing thing, and I quickly became like a massive fangirl of Whopper, and was very lucky to. I actually only got into the part-time course first off. And then I worked really, really hard throughout the year and did a million singing and dancing classes to get into the full-time course the following year.
Yeah, wow. And this industry is so hard to break into, and everyone talks about, there's that defining role that you get your break. So what was that moment for you where you thought, okay, I've not made it, but I'm going to make a career out of this? What was the role that turned things into a reality for you?
I think really I had a bit of a lucky start in that I was fortunate enough to get into Mamma Mia whilst I was in third year of Whopper, and so I was in the ensemble of Mamma Mia in its first run, and I understudied the three young women. And but after that, I actually did a year of that, and then thought, all right, I actually didn't have a great time on it for a few reasons, and I thought I was really lonely, and I was homesick. I was living in Sydney, and I thought, all right, it's time to go back and study and something else. It's just so I went back and started a law degree, and 6 months into the law degree, I was like, I'm miserable. This is I went to acting Dean, who's this really nice man, and he said, I would have liked to be an actor, and he said it's much easier to go and start a law degree down the track. It's much harder to start as an actor. Why don't you go back and give it one more shot? And my parents were like, yeah, give it one more shot, and I did, and I auditioned for 2 roles in just a short season. The production company in Melbourne were doing Oklahoma and Kissing. And I auditioned for 2 sort of lead roles in that. Marina Pryor was playing Kate, and I had looked up to her my entire life and still do. And I got the role of her sister, Bianca, and then I got the role of Laurie in Oklahoma. I got them on the same day, and that was the moment that I was like, oh, okay, I think I'm on the right path again.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Glinda in Wicked was a very, very large, much larger scale version of that. But that moment really for me was, that was I still can't believe that even happened. That wasn't a turning point as much
Wicked.
Wow. Excellent.
That is like iconic. So what have been some of the highlights and on stage and on screen, really?
Look, a highlight was definitely being I think, singing Popular in Wicked, which is where Glinda is giving Elphaba a makeover. And it was such my friend Gemma Ricks played Elphaba for quite a big chunk of the run. And Gemma currently plays Elsa in Frozen. She's an amazing performer and just an amazing person, but also like the most generous laugher. And so I would be trying silly new things all of the time. And it was the first time I'd done anything comedic, and it was so fun to just try stuff and know that even if nobody in the audience thinks it's funny, Gemma is going to laugh. Appreciate that, and so that was probably one of my favorite parts of being in Wicked, and the whole experience of really getting to feel like you really, there's moments in Wicked where I felt like I was using all of my skills, all of the things that I was best at, I could do in this one role, and it was so magical. And I miss that feeling sometimes. It was it was so exhausting but so enjoyable and so fulfilling. And even just getting to have a cry on stage every night, like it's nice to have a cry.
Cathartic.
And I was lucky enough to play Elle Woods in Legally Blonde, and that was a joy. That was also exhausting too, but like such a joy. And because it's a show with such a positive message of just be true to yourself, and staying true to yourself never goes out of style, and things like that, and overcoming people being prejudiced and not being prejudiced. She's such a lovely character to play. That was a delightful time and kind of a surprise, because I really didn't think I was the right person for the show, only because vocally it wasn't something that I'd done before. And so I kept thinking, like, every time I got a callback, I was like, really? And I auditioned. That audition process took ages, and in the end I did get it, and it was a real joy. But then after I had Polly, then went back to Wicked for a bit. I fell pregnant with my daughter Polly, and really wanted to have a go at some film and TV, and so kind of made the choice to not do musical theatre for a little while. And that's when I was really blessed to do the Let Down for the ABC, which was a show about a mother's group, and I just loved it. It was beautifully written. And Dr. I did for a couple of seasons as a cop, and that was really fun, kind of an awkward policewoman. And then I did a show called Sisters for Channel 10 by the same team that made Offspring, and that was really a massive moment in my life, because I loved Offspring, and the team who made it were incredible, and quite a few of them have become really close friends. So that was really
yeah. And of course, you were also on Neighbours, where I got my start. How was that? How was that experience for you?
That was a real gift, because that was a COVID gift. Like I did 2 stints on Neighbours for a few months each, one in 2020 and one in 2021. So both times we were in like quite hectic lockdowns, and it was great for lots of reasons. But one of the reasons I loved it the most is that I got to get in my car and go outside of the kilometre zone. And so that was really nice. And people were really nice. My character was a love interest for Toadie, and so I had quite a lot to do with Ryan, and he was a lovely person to work with. It was really enjoyable. I was so surprised though at how fast they work on Neighbours. It was
it is really fast.
So fast. Like I was on Sisters once and having like 11 scenes, and everybody being like, wow, that's a big day. And I was like, yeah, it's a big day. My first day on Neighbours, I had 13 scenes back to back, and nobody even said anything.
You don't bat an eyelid.
Like, wow.
We had a few listener questions come in for you, and one of the questions was, would you return now that Neighbours is making a return? Which is very exciting. It's so nice.
It's so nice. I think it's also the right amount of time, because we all kind of grieved that it was, it was such a, you can't help, even if you're not a watcher of soaps, like it's just an ingrained part of our culture. And I think it's really great that it's coming back. I'd totally go back and visit Ryan Street again.
It's one of those places that you could, like, I haven't been on there for 10 years, and I went to the wrap party and it was the same people and it was the same feeling as it was when I left. It's just, such a family feel.
Yeah, totally. They were all so nice. So, I had a lovely time on there.
Yeah. Just Geordie here, dropping in with the code word that you need to send in to us for your chance to win the tickets to Harry Styles' concert in 2023. Simply send us a DM with the words watermelon sugar for your chance to win. And don't forget, you need to be subscribed to It's All Her on either Apple or Spotify. Now let's get back to the episode. So tell us about Hey Lemonade.
Okay, so Hey Lemonade is a pep talk app. we deliver 3-minute uplifting, pragmatic pep talks about a specific issue. So something, but like an everyday stress. So when you're feeling blur, when you need to G up for a big meeting, when the people you live with are driving you nuts, when you're feeling vulnerable, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling FOMO, there's so many different talks that we've had written by amazing writers.
Yeah.
And then voiced in at least 3 different voices. So we have a voice companion team of Tony Armstrong, who you might know.
Yeah, there's some incredible voices.
Yeah, incredible. And Zoe Charakis, and they have just, like, their career has just gone intergalactic. They've just started a Marvel movie since we started working with them about a year ago. And
Wow.
they have a really cool, calm, chilled vibe. We just recorded last week with Maggie Beer in the Barossa Valley, and she is everything you could have wished for and more. She just was delightful. And you know, there's something so special about her, and getting a pep talk from her, I got really teary a couple of times just thinking, oh my God, this is exactly what I like. It's even imagined. And then we also have the wonderful Benjamin Law, who's so pragmatic and kind of like your best friend, or you know, your favorite brother, or just a really lovely, he's such a lovely person to have, and just to give you some really pragmatic, kind, funny sage advice. And Ben has written some talks as well. And Elise and I are both, so my friend Elise McCann and I started this. So Elise, an incredible, she's just a genius basically, but she's also a performer, and she played Miss Honey in Matilda. But Elise is an incredible person in that I actually said to her, I've said to her multiple times, you need to write somewhere that when you pass away, that you need to donate your brain to science. That's so brilliant. But she completed her law degree like whilst she was in Mamma Mia as like a 20-year-old.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she's a super high achiever, very smart person. And she and I have been friends for a really long time. And this is kind of our silver lining of COVID, because she and I had gone, we both were having a bit of a stressful time, as you know, was everybody. We'd all been dealt.
Yeah.
And Elise had been working with Sarah Jessica Parker in New York with her production company, and of course COVID hit and she had to come home. Her mum was going through cancer treatment, and I was playing Princess Fiona in Shrek the musical when COVID hit, and it was then all of us, and my husband and I both work in the entertainment industry, so we were trying to figure out how to support our family. And Elise and I had both, unbeknownst to each other, we sort of turned to the meditation and wellness apps, and we were both having the moment where we were like, I feel like I'm doing it a bit wrong. Like, I know I'm meant to be sitting for like 20 minutes every day with my eyes closed, and I'm really not doing that. Changing nappies, and I'm making lunches, or I'm quickly vacuuming and listening to it on my headphones, and I know that I'm doing things wrong, and I don't really have time for this. And I didn't always relate to, so the voice didn't always resonate with me that it was offered in. And she and I had gone for a walk, and she was saying the same things. We're like, oh my gosh, we were having a chat, and we kind of got to the bottom of our own issues quite quickly, and we're like, see, this is what we need. We just need like a quick chat with a friend.
Yeah.
Nip a small stress in the bud before it becomes bigger, because often, you know, it just becomes a bit of a cycle, and you start to be in your own head and just going, you just need a circuit breaker to be like, you know what, this isn't actually, yes, this is serious to you, but it's not serious of life, and you're actually going to be okay, and you have survived every one of your hardest moments up until this moment, and the person who got you out, even if you had great support, was you. So
yeah,
really pragmatic, kind of non-woo-woo advice. And we're like, surely this exists in an app, because you really just want to chat with your friend, but you can't always call your friend. You know, it's not always the right time if it's in the middle of the night, or, you know, they're at work, or that's not always an option. So, and we were like, surely there's a pep talk app out there that exists. And all of the things that existed, there were some things, but they're like largely huge libraries of really long talks. They're all great talks, but like Durack or Oprah, and they're also 20-30 minutes long, and they're not uniquely written for any specific situation. So we were like, let's make this, like, come on, we can do this. And of course it's become like essentially a full-time job for the both of us, and we've worked on it now for about 18 months, but we've launched the app and it's gone really well. And we had this great thing came up, actually it just came up through my bank, was advertising that you could apply for a grant with the CSIRO, and so we were like, this would be amazing. So we really want to test. We've brought on 4 psychologists so that all of the talk are written by these wonderful writers. So we have Marique Hardy and Wesley Enoch and Amy Tunig and Benjamin Law's written some, and Michelle Law, and we've got, well, actually I forgot to say it, we've also got Jamila Rizvi and Zinzia Kenya as voices as well, who are just wonderful.
Yeah.
And a wonderful man called Chief Brabon, who's an ex-SAS, ex-Navy SEALs trainer, who's really like hardcore.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you need to kick up into action, Chief's probably maybe your person. But yeah, we worked with these great writers and these 4 psychologists, but we really wanted to make sure that, we're putting a lot of effort into this. It needs to be scientifically sound. It needs to be scientifically helpful, because it's got to be effective and in the moment and just short, sharp and effective. And we were lucky enough to go through this process with the CSIRO and become recipients of their Kickstarter program. And we did do some testing, and overall it's been super positive. In fact, so much so that they're going to release our findings in a published paper at the beginning of next year. It went really well. So we're just thrilled that we're able to now sort of feel that we've done our due diligence, so that what we're putting out is sound. And that was always the goal. So
yeah. I mean, as a creative myself, I would know nothing about the tech space.
Yes.
What are some of like the logistics of getting an app up and running?
Well, we have a tech genius. Shaw Innes is our CTO, and we're so lucky to have Shaw. Actually, we'd actually gone to Shaw because exactly, Geordie, we were like, oh my gosh, we'd gone to a few different tech companies who make beautiful apps, but because this is an app that we're going to need to keep iterating, we release 4 new talks a month, and we're putting more content in. It was not cost effective to go to a company and to say, can you make the app? Because we need somebody to keep going with
the maintenance. Yeah.
And so they'd said it would be more cost effective to get somebody in your team. So we didn't even know what to, like, Elise is more tech savvy than me, but this is a first foray for both of us. And so we had done quite a lot of research, but we didn't even really know. We put an ad on LinkedIn and to find a tech person, and we had loads of people apply for it. And we were like, oh, I don't know, how do we even figure out who's the best? And
yeah,
we have had some amazing mentors, and there's a brilliant woman called Mandy Ross who some of our mentors had worked with before in big business, and she was working for Griffith University as their CIO. And we'd met with her a couple of times through another one of our mentors, and we just said, is there anyone you can speak to that can even help us with the language? Because we think we need to lodge this ad again. And she said, who you should talk to? There's this amazing guy. He's such a lovely guy, but he's also just a genius. He might be able to help with some of the wording. And we spoke to Shaw, and we told him all about Hey Lemonade and what we were planning to do. And at the end of it, he was like, you know what? I'll be the guy. We're like, what? Oh my gosh. And really, that's a great idea, and I'd be really keen to get on board. And so so we have been so lucky, because he is brilliant and just a lovely person, and super hardworking, and he lives in Brisbane. And so we work with Shaw, and also we have a chief marketing person, Lucy Cochran, who is also Eddie Perfect's wife, for anyone who's a musical theatre or entertainment person. But Lucy's an absolute boss. She used to work on she's worked in advertising for a really long time on big advertising campaigns. She's also been on Bruin, because she's an advertising and marketing genius. Really integral in our team as well. So the 4 of us have just worked really hard as a little team to.
That's amazing. It's fantastic. Well, congratulations. We had 2 more listener questions come in that I'm going to shoot at you now. What show would you like to come to Australia to be a part of?
That's a good question. Gosh, to be honest, I'm a bit out of the loop with everything that's on at the minute, but I, more than anything, I'd love to do some sort of movie musical or television series. I'd love to combine my musical side of life with because I love screen work, but I'd love to do it. So probably that would be my answer, which is not a definitive show as such, but I would love to do that.
Yeah. Oh my God. Glee was just my dream.
How great is Glee?
So good. Oh, next question was, what is Lucy Durack like on a bad day? Are you still a ray of sunshine?
Oh, no, I'm somebody who cries quite easily. Like, I sort of tend to like have a moment and then have a cry, and then I'm kind of usually okay again. But I have just as many moments in every day as the next person. Um, there's that saying, you can't wait for life to not be hard to be happy. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I think of that because some days are just hard, they just are. It's like that, you know, what's that song? My mama told me there'd be days like this. They're just are
Yeah.
that are just harder than others. And I think the older I get, the more I used to always, I really am into gratitude, but the older I get, the more I realize you also need to just, before you get into that, which I still think is important, I think sit with your feelings a bit longer.
Yeah.
Let yourself,
Yeah.
and have a cry, or, go for a walk, but just allow yourself to kind of mull on them for a bit before you
Yeah.
figure out how you're going to kind of get yourself out of a funk.
We're all about making life simpler and better for women. And as a mum who has a thriving career, how do you do that for yourself?
I am quite organized out of necessity. Like I sort of every night will put out the clothes for Polly and Teddy for the next day, so that because the mornings just get bananas. I don't know how. Like I think school gate, and I feel like I just want to high five everyone. Like, we did it. Like, look at us. We made it. We got to 8:50 or 9 o'clock, and we got to school somehow. I'm not sure what they've eaten. I put things for them. They have eaten, I think, none of it, but what can you do? So the kind of getting ready the night before tends to help me. And just trying to just be gentle on them and on me. Like sometimes I think, and I think, but yeah, making things simpler. That's a good question. I do tend to, when I can afford it, get a cleaner in every now and again to help me out.
Oh yeah, outsourcing is,
things when you can, if you can't afford it all the time, it doesn't matter. But if you can every now and again to treat yourself, it's I think that's worth it. And but yeah, like we have a Durack family planner, and everything is written down in it. I have to write everything down. I have lists constantly, and I'm just constantly writing this down, because if I don't write them down in the minute, they just circle back, and then I'm just thinking, I've got no mind space, like that mental load that we all have. So I find putting it down either on paper, I actually still love, I put it on notes on my phone, and that is helpful. But I love writing a list on paper and kind of writing like what needs to be done actually today, like what definitely, because otherwise I have such a long to-do list. I'm like, at the end of it, fix up your will. And it's like, oh, that's not going to happen today.
And there is something so satisfying as well as ticking it off physically that you've done it. It's accomplished.
On my notes, I sometimes put emojis next to them. As like a tick. But yeah, actually crossing it off a list really helps.
So satisfying.
Yeah, and I'm somebody who needs, I kind of wish I wasn't, but I'm somebody who needs to have a tidy house to have a tidy mind. So I do a big tidy up at the end of the day. So I think the other day there was just a guy tipping like basically toys into a big, like a giant dust like bin. And I was like, that is pretty much me. Like I just have big boxes that I just throw things in. There's not a lot of order to it, but I need it to be a way so I can wipe down all the surfaces.
Clear.
It's a way. It's not organized, but it's a way.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Lucy, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. I can't wait to see what you do next on screen, and all the best with the app.
Thanks, Geordie. Thank you so much. It's been lovely to chat.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of It's All Her. If you have loved this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. Share it with a friend, and stay tuned for next week's episode.